In the gray dawn over eastern Ukraine, where the horizon is forever scarred by craters and the stench of burnt earth lingers in the wind, the silence before battle felt heavier than ever. The ruins of once peaceful villages lay buried under a blanket of fog and ash. Broken power lines swung lifelessly in the cold wind, and the shattered remnants of farmhouses stood as mute witnesses to the relentless destruction that had become the new normal. It was here, amid the desolation of Donetsk's front lines, that Ukraine's Azov Regiment prepared for one of its most audacious ambushes since the war began. The destruction of a Russian elite troop column advancing through the sector intelligence gathered over several tense nights revealed that a highly trained Russian assault unit composed of veteran troops from the 76th Guards Air Assault Division was moving south along a narrow supply route. They were believed to be carrying both reinforcements and specialized equipment intended to punch through Ukrainian defensive lines near Avdiivka. These soldiers, hardened from years of combat experience, were not ordinary recruits. They were the Kremlin's chosen spearhead, confident, ruthless, and accustomed to victory. But this time, they were walking straight into a trap. Azov's reconnaissance drones had tracked the convoy's movements since midnight. Thermal signatures, engine noise, and intercepted digital coordinates confirmed the direction and speed of their approach. The column consisted of more than a dozen armored vehicles, several BMP infantry carriers, and 2 T-90 tanks leading the way. Behind them, trucks carried ammunition, supplies, and additional troops. To an untrained eye, it was just another Russian maneuver. But to Azov's command, it was a golden opportunity to cripple not just a military formation, but also the confidence of Russia's elite units. As dawn broke, Ukrainian positions were already in place. Hidden among ruins and dense forest lines, Azov fighters adjusted their firing zones with silent precision. Anti-tank teams armed with javelins and NLAWs covered the flanks, drone operators prepared to guide artillery, and snipers observed the entire sector through scopes. The tension was unbearable. Then, faintly, came the rumble of engines, low, steady, and drawing closer. Dust clouds rose from the horizon. The Russian convoy was entering the kill zone. The first explosion tore through the morning stillness, sending flames and black smoke into the air. A T-90 tank at the head of the convoy was hit and engulfed in fire within seconds. Moments later, another missile struck the tail of the formation, trapping the rest of the vehicles in a narrow stretch of road. What followed was a storm of destruction. Artillery shells, mortar fire, and anti-tank rounds hammering the line with deadly precision. Russian soldiers scrambled for cover, shouting orders and firing in all directions, but they found no visible enemy. Azov fighters had already shifted positions, attacking from multiple angles to confuse and disorient their opponents. Mortar fire pounded the center of the convoy, while drone-guided artillery destroyed the supply trucks carrying ammunition. Each impact triggered secondary explosions that tore through nearby vehicles. Within minutes, the Russian formation was in total disarray. Their armored vehicles burned fiercely, black smoke curling into the overcast sky. Ammunition detonated inside the wrecks, sending debris and flames across the muddy ground. Russian troops tried to pull the wounded to safety, but continuous Ukrainian fire made any organized retreat impossible. On the surrounding slopes, Azov's snipers eliminated small groups attempting to flee into open fields. Precision shots echoed between the ruins. Cold, methodical, unstoppable. This was not chaos, but a carefully coordinated operation designed to destroy one of Russia's most capable assault elements in a single decisive strike. By 7 a.m., the battlefield had turned into a graveyard of metal. Wrecked tanks smoldered along the roadside, their turrets blown apart. Infantry carriers were reduced to twisted steel, and dozens of Russian troops lay scattered among the wreckage. Ukrainian drones hovered silently overhead, recording every detail for assessment and future intelligence. For nearly an hour, the attack continued, relentless, precise, and devastating. When the smoke finally began to clear, the scene revealed the scale of the defeat. More than half of the convoy had been annihilated. Fires still raged across the landscape, and the sound of secondary explosions echoed as fuel and ammunition ignited one by one. The Azov fighters began to move cautiously toward the ruins, checking for any remaining threats and collecting valuable information. Maps, notebooks, and equipment were retrieved from the destroyed vehicles. Medics treated the wounded and secured the perimeter. the survivors of the Russian unit, scattered and disoriented, had already retreated north, leaving behind the wreckage of what was once one of the Kremlin's elite assault teams. Later that day, satellite imagery confirmed the extent of the strike. Long plumes of black smoke were visible for kilometers. Independent sources verified that the destroyed formation belonged to the 76th Guards Air Assault Division, one of Russia's most experienced and heavily armed airborne units. The loss of such a force was a severe tactical and symbolic blow. Russian military channels attempted to downplay the incident, claiming it was an isolated ambush. But images posted online told a different story. Burned-out T-90 tanks, destroyed BMPs, and the charred insignia of elite troops scattered across the battlefield. Analysts described it as one of the most effective ambushes conducted by Ukrainian forces in months. In Kyiv, reports of the successful strike spread quickly. Ukrainian media praised the Azov fighters for their coordination and precision. Military experts highlighted how drone-assisted targeting, combined with disciplined ground tactics, had turned a small ambush into a decisive battlefield victory. Western observers called it a model example of asymmetric warfare, the use of speed, information, and technology to overcome a larger and better-equipped enemy. For the soldiers of Azov, however, the victory was not met with celebration. The battle had taken its toll, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Many of them had fought without rest for days. As night fell, they regrouped in concealed positions, repairing equipment, tending to their own wounded, and preparing for the next engagement. They knew the enemy would strike back. Russian artillery began pounding the general area within hours, but the Ukrainian forces had already withdrawn to secure positions. By the time counterfire arrived, the ambush site was empty, save for the smoldering remains of the destroyed convoy. The blackened silhouettes of tanks stood as silent proof of Azov's precision and resolve. In the following days, further intelligence confirmed that the loss of the elite Russian unit disrupted Moscow's planned offensive in the sector. It forced command elements to delay new operations and reshuffle resources to fill the gap. Ukrainian morale surged. The footage of the destroyed convoy, captured from multiple drone angles, spread rapidly across social media, becoming both a tactical report and a symbol of defiance. International analysts pointed out that Ukraine's use of small, coordinated units, supported by real-time intelligence and modern anti-tank systems, was rewriting the rules of ground warfare. It demonstrated how agility and discipline could overcome sheer numbers and brute force. The Azov Regiment, once viewed solely as an infantry unit, had evolved into a highly adaptive strike force capable of inflicting heavy damage on even Russia's most advanced formations. Back in Donetsk, the front lines remained unstable. The war moved on, shifting from one ruined village to another, from one night of silence to another eruption of fire. But among soldiers and civilians alike, the story of the ambush lived on, whispered in trenches, shared on encrypted networks, retold in news broadcasts. It became a reminder that even in the darkest hours of war, strategy, skill, and courage could still decide the outcome of a battle. As the smoke faded from the wrecked column and the wind swept across the devastated fields, one truth became clear. The fight for Ukraine's survival was not only a contest of weapons, but of will. The men of the Azov Regiment had shown that no matter how elite the enemy, determination and discipline could still prevail against overwhelming odds. Their ambush would be studied for years, not just as a military victory, but as a symbol of resistance and tactical brilliance in a war defined by endurance. In the end, the smoke will fade, the echoes of artillery will quiet, and history will remember not the number of tanks destroyed, but the will of those who stood and fought for freedom. For more stories of courage, strategy, and the untold moments that shaped this war, follow Delta History and witness the real narratives behind modern conflict.